The home of the three-time national champion Florida State Seminoles. 1 week ago today, Florida State, they set college football ablaze. 31-17. They talked the talk and then they walked the walk against the Alabama Crimson Tide. And so today, we get set for another one against East Texas A&M, a non-conference matchup for the 1-0 Noles. And everybody is pumped for this one. I'm Ariya Massoudi. That's Eric Luallen. This is Game Day Live, presented by Bud Light. Lulu, as soon as that game ended last Saturday against the Crimson Tide, I think you and I both said, we can't wait to get back to Doak. Here we are, game number 2 of the season.
Well, and you've got to keep it going. You beat Alabama last week. You got to keep it going. And but what a game it was. What a performance by this ball club. They were dialed in, and they went out and executed things exactly the way they worked on in practice, and it was good to see them come out and play that way.
Well, we've got a chance to catch up on this game against Alabama. But before we do that, Lulu, what was the one thing that impressed you the most about the win over Alabama for Florida State?
I'm going back to my offensive line roots. The physical nature of play in that offensive line, I think, impressed me the most. I love to see the way they played, the attitude, the edge.
Florida State 5-2 now against the SEC in season openers. Here's how it happens. We've got to take a look back at Florida State 31-17, knocking off Alabama. It was dominant in every phase. And it started with the helicopters going over. I mean, this was the right way to pump us up.
Well, I saw those guys on the back there. To see that shot later on of them going over the stadium was fantastic.
Tommy Castellanos, his first game. Bert Kreischer was in the house. He pumped up the crowd. And Lulu, Florida State, they go down 7-0, right? Alabama punches Florida State in the mouth, but here comes Tommy, dual threat ability. Florida State answers right back.
Yeah, it was good to see them turn around, answer back. It was an opening drive. It was a great drive by Alabama, but Florida State, like you said, turned around and answered, and that was good to see, and it set a tone for that game.
Over 50 newcomers for Florida State this season. You see Squirrel White, big catch, and then Tommy, touchdown, gets into the end zone there, Lulu.
It's another aspect of the game that Tommy Castellanos has. He can tuck it and run. You can do design runs. He can get out of jams. You can throw it. You got the total package there with Tommy.
And then, Eric, the defense started to figure itself out. After that first drive, Tony White's group really started to play team defense.
Yeah, just aggressive and really as advertised with what we expected to see out of a Tony White defense.
Tommy continues to keep plays alive with his legs. Over 15 rushes for Tommy in this one. You and I both thought Gus Malzahn would run the quarterback. And how about Mekhi Danzy? He electrified Doak with this one.
There's football speed, there's track speed. Mekhi Danzy has that track speed. You saw it on that play. He hit about the 30-yard line and kicked it into another gear there, Ariya.
There's track speed and then there's Olympic
yes.
track speed. Mekhi Danzy could have a chance to represent the United States in the Los Angeles Olympics in a couple of years. At this point, Lulu, I think the fans started to believe. Gus Malzahn started to believe. Not only could Florida State hang with Alabama, they could find a way to win this football game.
Yeah, and you see Florida State just kept the pressure on. Big stop there. Getting that ball back into the hands of this Florida State offense.
This one to Lucas.
And what a weapon he was in that ball game. I love the way they use him in the slot, use him in the backfield, use him as a decoy on jet motion. I love the way they use Lucas.
They made life miserable, didn't they, on Ty Simpson, Alabama's quarterback? He looked frazzled for a majority of the game.
Well, again, this 3-3-5 look that Tony White gives you is designed to confuse the quarterbacks, to not let him be able to figure out exactly what you're trying to do, where pressure's coming from, what coverages you're in.
This is hammer meeting nail. This is the sleep. Night, right to the ear, the Steph Curry. Oh, they're dancing too. They're having some fun. Florida State, 31-17. Coach Norvell, Tommy Castellanos embrace. Here's the head coach's thoughts after the game.
Our play was a good challenge. And, I thought you saw a great heart. Just the way that they, we've talked all year, and I've used the buzzwords of edge and desperation. Well, that comes from the heart. And you saw heart tonight. And you saw a team that, absolutely loved playing this game together, and we're physically dominant, we're emotionally together, and they responded, because it wasn't a perfect game. And, we talked about that as a team, is that this is the first step, but it was a big step. And now we got to go and get better.
Well, not much more you can get better than 31-17, but there are things, Lulu, as I look at one of my notes, do you know Mike Norvell's the only head coach with multiple regular season non-conference wins against top 10 SEC opponents in the last 10 years? Doesn't happen often. He needed this game. I think that takes me into the question I have for you. Mike Norvell, there was some pressure coming into the year, right? He went and made the proper changes, and they said, hey, if you could compete with Alabama, that would be a step in the right direction. He took it one step further, and he knocked them out.
Well, and I think, again, in his new role as more of a CEO head coach rather than a hands-on, calling the plays, doing all those things, I think it does open up some things for him that he hasn't been able to do in the past. You get the ball back after a great special teams play. You're worried about calling that next play. Now he can run over. He can say something. He can coach up the special teams. He can get involved in all aspects of it instead of having to be laser focused on just calling offensive plays.
Yeah, no doubt. I think one of Coach Norvell's hallmarks is his ability to make his roster, his locker room believe in the message. What does this do after one game for that locker room to believe about what's possible this season for Mike Norvell?
I think that's one of the things when you look at Norvell as a coach. He's always been good at delivering that speech, at getting the guys riled up, at getting the guys fired up and focused. Last year, 2-10. You start to worry about a little bit about what that locker room can be like. You make those changes. You get some new blood in as far as the coaching staff. You get some new blood in as far as the roster goes. Now that message is going out again, and it's going out to a fairly new group, and he could kind of rework things and in a little bit of a rebirth for him right there. And we saw him in his post-game speech talking to that team. And that's the Norvell that we know. That's the Norvell that we love. That's the Norvell that goes to booster events and gets the entire crowd fired up. So it's good to see that.
Yeah, you can see on your screen there, he ended the Tide's opening week win streak. 23 in a row, 23 openers in a row. That's dating back to before Saban, where Florida State ended that streak. Alabama fans are in shambles right now. Look at social media, the national pundits who are SEC homers. They can't handle this. This has been a phenomenal week for Florida State football.
Well, and when you look at it, you look at out-of-conference games away from Tuscaloosa for Alabama. The blemishes are Florida State in 2007, Florida State in 2025. So, again, look, I'm a Florida State guy. I don't much care what Alabama does against everybody else. I do care what happens when Florida State tees it up against Alabama. So I'm happy anytime we play a team like that and beat them. Opening day, renovated Doak Campbell Stadium, new players, new coaches. I was elated last week with how that turned out.
In the last 5 years now, LSU and Alabama must hate to see Florida State to start a season. A big part of the win for Florida State, we talked about it last week. It's all about the quarterback, right? Tommy Castellanos was simply a star in this one. Lulu, when you look at Tommy and the way that he played in his first game, he brought the moxie, he brought the attitude, and he brought the swagger. Here's Tommy after the game on the win.
How much fun was that on Saturday?
It was so much fun. It's probably the most fun I've ever had in my life. It's definitely a dream come true. I know I'm living out a lot of people's dreams, living out my dream. Just thank you for the opportunity and blessed to be here.
That was a part of Inside Seminole Football on Mondays at Bowden's. I think Jeff Colhane does such a great job with that. Sempro produces it as well. You can tell this was the childhood dream for Tommy Castellanos. He got to put on the garnet and gold in that helmet, the spear on that helmet, and he really balled out.
Well, and you could tell how he feels about Florida State. If you go back and watch the way he performed against Florida State in the past, you could tell there was a little burr about Florida State with him there. Now he gets an opportunity to do it in the garnet and gold. Came out, and I talked to somebody on Sunday, and they're like, Castellanos, he was only 9 of 14 thrown. Well, that wasn't the game plan. The game plan was not to come out and have him throw 35, 40 times. It was to have him field general, use his legs, make plays in the running game, set up the running back, set up that offensive line, and I thought he performed perfectly for what they needed him to do last week.
You got to play in front of some childhood heroes. Can we show the picture of Peter Warrick? You had stars all over the field. It's Peter Warrick and Dalvin Cook behind him after the first touchdown.
There.
How hard does that photo go?
Oh, that's wonderful. And you look at Tommy Castellanos. Brian McFadden talked about it, former great FSU defensive back, long career in the NFL. He talked about playing against a quarterback like Castellanos. He said it's almost like, you're playing 11 on 11, but when you have a quarterback that has that added dimension, that can do the things Castellanos can do, it's almost like you're playing against 12 guys. And I thought that was a great analogy by Bryant about a quarterback like Castellanos. We saw it with Jordan Travis. You have that ability to change the game with your legs, but you have to respect the pass. If you try to shut off the run completely for him, he's going to kill you with his arm, and it's great to have that other dimension with a quarterback.
Especially in provision, right? And
yeah.
Gus Malzahn, his offensive coordinator, talked about we wanted to get him 15 rushes. Was listening to a podcast earlier this week. He said 10 designed and probably 5 more where he improvises and he makes it happen on his own. Florida State over 200 yards rushing in this one. Here's the offensive coordinator, Gus Malzahn, on his thoughts on how Florida State took down Bama.
Real pleased with how they did respond against a very, very talented defense with very good coaches. You know, I was really impressed with our physicality. I mean, you got to be physical, you know, against a talented group like that. I think we're still growing as an offense. We learned a lot about ourselves. I told the guys, you know, best offenses I've ever been a part of, they improve from week 1 to week 2 more than they do any other part of the season. And that's what we have to do. It doesn't matter who we're playing. But so that's what we're going to be ready to do this week in practice.
Well, Lou, you and I talked about last week in this pregame show on the Game Day Live about what Gus Malzahn does. They rush the ball everywhere that they've been. Florida State, 230 rush yards. That was the most in 4 seasons, especially against a top 10 team.
And when you look back just at the way football is, you're not going to lose a whole lot of games when you play at the level Florida State did and put the 230 yards on the board with that rushing attack that Florida State used. It's hard to lose games when you play that way.
Yeah, and the Florida State Seminoles, you got to pound the rock. That was one of the keys to the game. The Noles battled in the trenches. All right, when we come back, it's time to take our first break. But Eric Luallen, Lulu's going to sit down with Luke Petitbon. He loves his offensive line, and we can't wait for you to see this interview on Game Day Live. Don't go anywhere.
It didn't start here.
But everything it stood for still does.
Some things change.
And some things never change.
Tradition, dedication to excellence, a program built on grit.
And driven by growth.
From the tunnel to the turf, every step forward tells a story.
Just like ours.
Where growth, determination, and a dedication to excellence meet.
Scott and Walt.
Back here on Game Day Live, presented by Bud Light, Doak Campbell Stadium. Behind us, we're getting close to kickoff between Florida State and East Texas A&M. Ariya Massoudi, Eric Luallen. Luke Petitbon was one of almost 50 transfers to come to Florida State here this season. Lulu had a chance to sit down with Florida State center.
Luke, you got that first game under your belt now. What was it like to get that win against Alabama, your first ever time in Doak Campbell Stadium?
Yeah, I think it was something that was really special for me, obviously being my first time, running out of that tunnel and, hearing the home crowd at Doak. And it was awesome, and I really appreciated all the fans coming out. It was something that was really special to me, not only just beating Alabama, but because, I had so many loved ones and family members in the crowd that, made it even more special.
You come from quite the football family. Your grandfather was a defensive coordinator under Joe Gibbs, multiple Super Bowl wins. Your dad played at Maryland. Your older brother played at Alabama and Illinois. You've got a younger brother that's at Maryland now. What was it like growing up in that kind of football family?
Yeah, I think, all of us love football, and, it was something that my dad and my grandfather never put pressure on us. They never, were like, you have to play football. It's kind of something that we all just grew to love, which was awesome because, having two brothers, us always constantly playing football together in the backyard or just, randomly tackling each other, just blocking each other, doing things like that. Football's been ingrained in our lives since we were younger, and, obviously we all grew to love it and ended up playing college football, so it's really awesome.
The 5 starters on the offensive line, all 5 of you guys played every play in that game. How proud are you to be one of the leaders of that group after that effort?
Yeah, I think that just to talk about the, performance on Saturday, I think it was, a great all-around unit performance. I think that you watch the film and guys are finishing blocks, finishing drives, running after the ball, pushing the pile. doing the little things right, and I think that's the characteristics of a great O-line unit, and it's cool for me to be able to be a leader of that group and do my part to help everyone get on the same page and do what I can to help everyone else.
That leadership role, center, usually he's going to be given a lot of tasks. What kind of jobs are you given as the center in this offense with Coach Norvell and Coach Malzahn and Coach Hand to go out there? What kind of responsibilities do you have at the start of the play?
Yeah, so my job as the center is to get everyone on the same page. So in the run game, it's IDing fronts, IDing linebackers, setting the combination calls, pass game, telling everyone where we're sliding to or who we're sliding to or what guys we're blocking. And as the center, if you just have to go out there, make your call, and make sure everyone's on the same page.
You go in and you say, let's go out, let's win this first game. You're 1-0 now. What are you most excited about now as we progress through the season?
I think the thing that I'm most excited about is, in week one, we were able to see, what we can do. And I think it also showed us that there's so much more room for improvement and growth. So as the season goes on and moves on, I'm excited to see how much better we can get. And I think that the sky's the limit for, our offense and this entire team.
First and foremost, nice work on the interview there.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
A couple of linemen talking shop, talking ball. Lulu, Florida State, wonderful rushing performance. The offensive line in the trenches, they battled, and they dominated Alabama. When it comes down to the way when you played offensive line all those years ago, what's changed the most between now and then in terms of offensive line play?
I don't know that a whole lot has changed. It's still the same basic game. And guys, when you watch technique, I think there's a lot of the same things that they do now that we were doing back then. As far as the calls, I enjoyed that part of the interview where he's talking about what he's supposed to be doing out there. The center's going to come out, talked about identifying fronts. Same thing that we did back when I played. The center's got, look, if the quarterback's the lieutenant out there on the field, the center's the sergeant. He's the guy that's keeping the guys in their groups, keeping the guys together, getting their guys the orders, relaying that down the line. And so he's going to get out there. He's going to try to identify blitzes that may be coming. He's going to identify fronts. He's going to identify linebackers, call out blocking schemes, things like that. So there's a lot to put on that guy's shoulders. To have a fifth-year senior with the football pedigree that Luke Petitbon has is a huge, huge luxury. And we saw how that played out for Florida State last week. I thought the physical nature of how they played was fantastic. Watching them, how they dealt with blitzes, how they dealt with twists, stunts, things of that nature. I just enjoyed every bit of watching that offensive line play. I enjoyed going back and watching it later on just to see what I could pick up. That long pass to Squirrel, great twist pickup. You see Luke Petitbon calling out the defense, and they pick up a twist, and he takes the defensive end who's looping around the tackle and just buries that guy in the turf. So it was just, I think, top to bottom, that offensive line played so great in that game.
Yeah, they sure did. I thought they dominated in the trenches. And Lulu, as good as the offense played, I thought the defense really grew into the game, right? After that first drive for Alabama where they marched down the field, defensively, Tony White's group, this is what it looked like against Ty Simpson and that Bama attack. There were some new pieces for Bama as well, but I thought the secondary with the three high safeties, they caused issues, in the front for Florida State really confused Ty Simpson.
Man, how about Earl Little in that ball game, the way he played? He was just a wrecking ball out there for Florida State. And again, 3-3-5 scheme for Tony White. It's something that people came up with specifically for these spread attacks that you have to see, trying to confuse quarterbacks, trying to not let them know what coverage you're coming up with, where the blitzes are coming from. And I thought all of that worked to perfection.
We got to hear from the defensive coordinator, Tony White. Here's how his unit balled out against Alabama.
Winning the football game is really tough. It don't matter who you're playing. It just so happened that, it was a top 10 team, and it's Bama, and coming off the season, and ABC Sports and all that kind of stuff, sold out house. Like, you know what? They should have celebrated their tails off last night. Great decisions, but you worked too darn hard to not celebrate victories, especially that one. Family, friends, recruits, it was awesome, but we call this reflection day. This is a day where if we do it right and we watch the film the correct way, instead of patting ourselves on the back, we say, yo, I could have, should have did this better, and I will do this better. Then we just got 1% better today. We improved today.
They got better as the game went along. Literally, I love this note that I wrote down. Bama had 55 rushing yards on the first drive of the game. Guess how much they had the rest of the game? On 17 carries, it was 32 yards, Lulu.
There you go.
I mean, after that first drive, Alabama was dominated. They had their fewest rushing yards in a season opener in almost 40 years.
And tough against the run is one of the signatures of a Tony White defense. That's what he's been known for throughout his career as a defensive coach, as a coordinator, being tough against the run. And we saw that last week against an Alabama team that just couldn't get the running game going past that first drive.
And we knew Tony White at all of his stops, right, Lulu? Syracuse, Nebraska, he had put together some really good defenses. The Noles also got 3 sacks and 7 tackles for loss. He found different ways to put Bama behind the chains and really make their offense have to play from behind.
Well, that's, again, that 3-3-5 look that he's going to do. There's so many different blitz packages he can come up with there, and it's that scheme itself is so good at disguising the blitz, disguising where it's coming from, and then even if you can maybe figure out the blitz, you still have to figure out the coverage that you're going to be seeing as a quarterback, and all of that gets tougher and tougher as the game goes for a quarterback against a Tony White defense.
Yeah, what did you notice the most about the way Florida State was able to keep Bama behind the chains in terms of not letting the Tide be on schedule, to stay on script? They couldn't run the ball, and so that put the onus on Simpson to have to try and throw the ball. He has talented receivers, but it seemed like Florida State bottled those guys up pretty well, too.
Well, they bottled them up, so again, that gives him fewer options as to where he's going to throw it if you take care of those receivers. But I also thought that they did a good job of getting in his face and making him uncomfortable, not letting him get into a rhythm, get into a flow, just making him uncomfortable so he ends up making bad decisions. Those are, again, hallmarks of what Tony White's trying to do.
Yeah, he did a fantastic job in this one, his defense only allowing 17 points. It's time to take a break. When we come back, we'll look back at a moment that can only be described as great. Game Day Live, presented by Bud Light, continues after these messages.
Hey, your voice is amazing. Let him hear it.
When you work with someone who knows a lot and cares even more.
Give me a word, give me a sign. Show me where to look, tell me, what will I find?
You're unstoppable.
I'm just getting started.
Well, I'm here to help.
At Truist, we believe the same is true for banking.
Anything for Bud Light, official beer sponsor of the NFL. Thanks.
Doug Campbell Stadium getting close. It's a little over 30 minutes before Florida State and East Texas A&M, the Noles and the Lions battle out. Let's move over to the Seminole Soccer Complex for a Bud Light. Great moment.
It's over to Dudley. She'll take a shot, and it's in the net!
30 yards, pick it out of the top of the net, upper 90 dandy. Are you kidding me? Is that a Sports Center top 10? I think it's got to be. Bending away from the keeper. One of the best players in the country, showing you why she's just that.
Send in this submission to Bristol, why don't you?
Tell you what, you had an SC top 10. It's always strange to hear your own voice on highlights and then come back and go, oh, that was me calling that game. 7-0 for Florida State over Stetson. Brian Penske challenged his team, Lulu. They got 7 goals, 25 shots. That Noles soccer program back on track, feeling pretty good about themselves.
Go out, beat the teams you're supposed to beat, dominate the teams you're supposed to dominate, and that's what they did against Stetson.
Yeah, they got one more non-conference match, and then the volleyball program, when we talk about Coach Poole and what they're doing, they've got a matchup against South Carolina and then Oklahoma, so a pair of SEC foes coming up for the volleyball program. The Olympic sports at FSU, the women's sports, phenomenal. You could argue the best in the country.
Oh, absolutely, and you talk about fun. Going to volleyball matches at Tully, that's a lot of fun. I went to a ton of those when I was in school. Nancy Gaspaderic, Gabby Reese, that whole crew, they were fun to watch, fun to go cheer on, and it's still a great atmosphere in Tully.
When you talk about Seminoles in the soccer complex, at the softball plex, the softball and Joanne Graff Field, you've got multiple national championships over the last 10 years. They're doing such a great job. So shout out to the women's sports at Florida State, the Olympic sports, getting the job done here in Tallahassee. Let's take a look at these players warming up. We're about 30 minutes from kickoff between the Noles and the Lions as we take a look at our field pass. Lulu, Jake Weinberg hit his first career field goal on his first career attempt. I'm sure the butterflies were there, but he looked like a pro.
And everything that he was asked to do last week, he got done. He got it all done. Kickoffs were great, put everything through the end zone. Every attempted kick that he had went through. You had to love what you saw out of him in his first ever time being the guy as far as kicking goes.
Jake Weinberg knocking a 45-yard field goal through. And what was impressive about that was he made his first one. They took a timeout, and then they made him kick it again, and he made them both. Ashlyn Barker, you talked about the 3 high safeties. I thought between Earl Little, Ashlyn Barker, Quindarius Jones, Florida State secondary was phenomenal. Barkland had a number of really nice plays, especially against a tough matchup in Ryan Williams.
Well, and there was a lot of talk about Earl Little, but what Barker was able to do last week, I think just as big. He maybe didn't have the highlight reel hits that Little had, but certainly he played an excellent game in that new Tony White scheme, and he's going to be fun to watch throughout the season.
Yeah, he is. You know, he had a big hit against Ryan Williams there on that first drive. Bama ended up scoring, but Ryan Williams, the message was sent, wasn't it, that Florida State was going to be laying the wood and that this was going to be a physical contest.
Well, and you remember that, and that's one of the things you want to have, that intimidation factor. When you get that opportunity to level a guy, go ahead and level him. Do it legally, obviously, but you want somebody to remember that. You want guys to be a little leery next time they come in your area.
Tony White's defenses have held opponents to 20 or fewer points now 16 times since 2023. I mean, it's amongst the best in the nation. Ashlyn Barker leading the charge there, too. So if Florida State, Lulu, today takes care of business, you hope halftime, third quarter, this is an opportunity for the Noles to be able to get a lot of players in. Kevin Sperry's one, a quarterback that we would love to see get some reps, a 4-star quarterback, and it would be his college debut if he got into the game today. I think there's a pretty good shot we see number 9.
Highly touted, Denton, Texas, that's where he's from. I remember these days as a player, you're coming off a big win, you have an opponent that you should be able to go out and dominate. As a guy like Sperry, you want the guys to go out there and take care of business. You want the starters to go out there and take care of business. 1, because you want to win, you're a Seminole, but 2, because the more they take care of business, the earlier you can get that opportunity, you can get out on the field, and you get that chance to show the coaching staff what you can do and to build confidence in you for them.
Yeah, you talk about Tommy Castellanos. It's going to be a 1-year deal for Florida State, so you got to have quarterbacks ready to go. How about Juice Cryer on that defense for Tony White? He had 7 tackles on this one. Him and Stephon Thompson, I thought, and Elijah Herring as well, those linebackers, they played at an extremely high level. You mentioned last week in that 3-3-5, the onus is really put on the linebackers to flow to the football and make tackles for loss and to be able to limit opposing offenses. The linebacking unit, Juice Cryer, led by him, really shined last week.
Yeah, I thought the linebackers played excellent. And again, you want those defensive linemen tying up the offensive line as much as they can. to try to get the linebackers free rein, to try to get them free pass to wherever the ball carrier is going to be. And it worked exactly to design. I thought the linebackers as a unit played well. And you look at 7 tackles for Juice last week. Again, those are the kind of numbers that you want to see out of one of your main linebackers, one of your primary guys.
You know what was interesting about Juice Cryer and what I loved? After the game, he said there wasn't a single one of us who didn't believe in that locker room that we were beating Alabama. Somebody asked him about Tommy Castellanos' comments, and Juice said it hyped me up. I texted him and let him know I had his back. And so if you can talk the talk and your players and your teammates walk the walk, then maybe talking some smack in the preseason can help your team the confidence against playing versus Alabama. Guys continuing to warm up. We're getting close. Noles and Lions game 2 of the year. When we come back here on Game Day Live presented by Bud Light, Tommy Castellanos and the Noles getting ready for game 2. We're going to join the video board and all our friends at Doak to break down the matchup. Florida State, East Texas A&M. Stay with us.
Hey, your voice is amazing. Let him hear it.
When you work with someone who knows a lot and cares even more.
Give me a word, give me a sign. Show me where to look, tell me what will I find.
You're unstoppable.
I'm just getting started.
Well, I'm here to help.
At Truist, we believe the same is true for banking.
Anything for Bud Light, official beer sponsor of the NFL.
Thanks.
Noles family, welcome to today's game featuring East Texas A&M and your Florida State Seminoles. Let's toss it down to Ariya for Game Day Live, presented by Bud Light.
How's it going, Doak Campbell Stadium? Ariya Massoudi, Eric Luallen. This is Game Day Live presented by Bud Light. Lulu, 31-17. Florida State makes Alabama submit last weekend, and Florida State off and running in this one. Tommy Castellanos was fantastic. In his debut as a Seminole, he did what Tommy Touchdown does.
Look, they want him to go out there, create things with his arm, create things with his legs. He did just that.
Dynamic dual threat quarterback. Here's how Tommy looked against the Crimson Tide. He said he had some nerves, but he was confident as could be. Talk the talk, walk the walk. How about this throw? Scroll White, 40 yards. Noles are in business.
Great pick up there by the offensive line in front of him, and I know he'd be the first one to credit them with the game they played last week.
That was his 16th rushing touchdown of his career. He started the game 7 for 7. Nice throw here to Pittman to keep the chains moving. his ability, the dynamic big play threat, his ability to keep plays alive, Lulu, that was huge against the Crimson Tide.
Well, there you see him take advantage of that pocket, take off running, and make something out of that play.
And so Florida State 31-17 over Bama. We couldn't wait to get back into Doak Campbell Stadium, Lulu. This is a big one for FSU continuing on their season.
Yeah, it is. And you come out, you've got to play well today. You've got an opponent that you should be able to take care of pretty easily. You want to make sure you don't get caught up in a funk because of what you did last week when you get out today.
And those the Seminoles 27-1 under Mike Norvell when they score 30 points in a ballgame. That could be the magic number. How about that defense as well? They got the job done for Tony White.
They did. He kept Alabama under 100 yards rushing, a signature of Tony White defenses.
Yeah, sure did. And Florida State, the keys to this one against East Texas A&M, Lulu, when we look at how Florida State is going to move to 2-0, what do you look at?
Well, I think you've got to have a fast start. Don't let East Texas A&M build confidence and stick around. Impose your will on a team that you've got a talent advantage against, and then create takeaways. If you have one critique of last week, they did not create a turnover. Let's create some takeaways today.
Seminole team looking to take the ball away from East Texas A&M. All right, Lulu, good stuff from you. We'll be back plenty throughout the game. Enjoy this one. Ariya Massoudi, Eric Luallen. This is Game Day Live. All right, and when we come back here, we'll talk some video boards. How about that? We were just on the video board, and when we come back, Emily Peters will join us to talk more about the in-game production here at Doak Campbell Stadium.
Hey, your voice is amazing. Let him hear it.
When you work with someone who knows a lot and cares even more.
Give me a word, give me a sign. Show me where to look, tell me what will I find.
You're unstoppable.
I'm just getting started.
Well, I'm here to help.
At Truist, we believe the same is true for banking.
Anything for Bud Light, official beer sponsor of the NFL. Thanks.
And now, the starting lineups for your Florida State Seminoles. Special teams, long snapper,
Mason Arnold, Tampa, Florida.
punter,
Continuing our Game Day Live coverage now, we welcome in our rock star, Emily Peters.
The newly renovated Doak Campbell Stadium features a complete upgrade to fan experience, and it all starts with game presentation. Earlier this week, I sat down with a few of the individuals that bring the boards to life.
So we did a one-for-one replacement of every existing LED board. We brought in new technology from Metco that's at a 13.5 pixel pitch, high-resolution displays with a great deal of control over brightness. So we're able to really expand the experience we're providing to our fans by providing an enhanced quality for all the creative content we're displaying.
Creating this top-tier game day experience was a complete group effort.
The technology department in Seminole Productions, we were able to manage the entire life cycle of the project, from selecting the vendor to dealing with the infrastructure, permitting, inspection, working with Nations Group, of course, on a lot of that, and they're terrific.
From everyone in SemPro to everyone, from our engineering to IT to football ops themselves, facilities, admin, everyone is involved in some way, shape, or form with this process.
And we displayed that when you have the right people with the right technical knowledge and you bring in everybody at the same table, you create the best product for your team.
From amazing video boards to music selection, our fans have the ability to make a huge impact on the game and give the Noles a true home field advantage.
My goal for fans that come to Doak Campbell Stadium would be to feel connected to the team, connected to each other, connected to the university. They've got a choice to either stay at home and watch or to come to the stadium, and being in the stadium, you should feel something different.
What we are trying to do is basically be involved as much as possible, but also let the fans have their own voice.
And a scoreboard that's putting a lot of smiles on these faces.
I think it offers fans a chance to feel like they have a direct input into how the game happens and what happens on the field.
Let's take for a moment the Alabama game. I mean, absolutely. I felt like from when gates opened to when the fans rushed the field, it was just nonstop. Every board, every single ribbon, every single light, everything was trying to make it so we could get to a point where we can have it. Make it so the players in the field can feel what we are feeling, which is we want them to dominate.
You could really see, especially on Saturday, how these cues and features we were showing on the board, there was a huge response to that.
The players on the field, you could see from their reactions on the field, like, you know, they're dancing along to music. Every time we got a stop, whether it was just a 3-yard gain from Alabama or whether or not we got a sack or a pass deflection, we were on top of it, and it just felt so good to see their performance just reflect that of what was happening in the stadium around them from the fans and from, you know, the game presentation standpoint.
We are all a part of the game day experience here at Doak. So if you're heading out to the stadium, be sure to cheer loud and proud. Guys, back to you.
Emily says loud and proud, and so we follow her directions. Great job on that feature. Mav, Kyle, Roddy coming in, our entire crew at Sempro. Lulu, it's been phenomenal. The in-game presentation, the atmosphere, it has done so much for it. I'm looking at my notes. 2 new video boards, 57 by 120 on the north end zone and 35 by 75. 4K, looks beautiful.
Hey, I'll tell you how great they are. People were coming up to me afterwards and saying I looked great on the thing. So that tells you how great those video boards are, if they can make me look good.
You look good no matter what. So a lot of fun in that one for Florida State. And you see those video boards, the LED signage, keeping fans in the loop during the game. I thought the atmosphere in this one last week, oh my goodness, Stoke as loud as it's been.
For me, sitting in the stands for a game, and granted, there have been some loud games that I haven't been in the stands for, but sitting in the stands for the game, as loud as I can remember it. My experience, West Side Club, was fantastic. I thought Michael Alford and Stephen Ponder and that whole crew really nailed it from that standpoint, and obviously the in-game production people nailed it as well.
Yeah, they do such a great job for us. Put this Game Day Live feature together for us to show in a matter of weeks. Big league. This is as good as NFL pregame shows. A lot of fun. I think fans have really enjoyed this as well all over social media. Lulu, when we look at picks to click for this one, this is a progression on the season, right? Who are the 3 guys that you're looking for most today to have big games?
Well, I think with Roydell Williams out and you, again, focus on the running game, I love Sawcheck and Usman Kroma. Those 2 guys, as far as the running game goes, I think are 2 to keep an eye on. And we saw great performances out of both of them last week in that Alabama game.
Yeah, they did. Sawchuk with the big run at the end to seal the deal for Florida State, the transfer from Oklahoma. On your screen, Usman Kroma, he was one of the best running backs in the country coming out of high school in Lee County in South Georgia. The Noles had to fight off Georgia to get Usman to campus. There was a run last week, Lulu. He started dragging Alabama defenders with him. That's just a freshman.
Yeah, and again, you saw, like, he went into beast mode. That first carry where he's just dragging guys on his back, he was in beast mode there, and I can't wait to see more out of him, and this should be a good opportunity for him here today.
What about James Williams, right, on the defensive side? It seemed like he almost had 3 or 4 sacks, and Ty Simpson was just kind of squirming around, getting away from his grasp. I think he's going to have his first sacks of the season today.
Well, again, he's a guy that he comes over with Tony White. He's got experience in that system. He's a guy they're leaning on for his leadership out there on the field. But then we also saw him as a performer, as a player. We saw him show out last week. And again, looking forward to seeing more of him in this atmosphere here at Doak.
Yeah, you got East Texas A&M, the Lions, out of the FCS, out of the Southland Conference. This is their 4th season in Division I football at the FBS level. They changed their name from Texas A&M Commerce. They won a Division II national championship back in 2017.
And our old friend Jim Curry, the
Curry's
athletic
back
director.
here too.
But you look at them, they played Southern Methodist tough last week. I turned that game on. It was 21-3. They were forcing turnovers against SMU. That's something you want to stay out of here today for Florida State.
Yeah, a kickoff a little bit after 12 noon. What a show here. Again, Game Day Live, our 2nd episode here. Every home game from Doak Campbell Stadium on the Seminoles Unconquered app and all the social medias. Lulu, appreciate you as always. We'll be back here at halftime. For the folks at Doak Campbell Stadium and in the suites. Want to thank everybody for helping put this production on. I'm Ariya Massoudi. You've been watching Game Day Live, presented by Bud Light. Enjoy the game. Noles and Lions coming up.